Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Callas Software speaking. I'm Dietrich von Seggern from Callas Software. I'm a business development manager over here. I think many of you already know me. I will just start now, so it's all about pdfToolbox 6 today. There are many new features in the new version. This is still a pre-release version. As you can see here on my desktop, this one is from July 2nd. We are still working hard on the release version, which is scheduled for either tomorrow or on Monday next week. So just a couple of hours for all of you until the new version will be available for download in callassoftware.com download section. Today I'm going to that. So there are many new features in pdfToolbox, many minor things, usability stuff, and so. But today I want to concentrate on process plans. So I will show you what process plans are in just a minute. So I will concentrate on the process plan stuff as well as on the new server. So server has been developed completely new, and I would like to show that to you. I think that the presentation will be for about 60 minutes from now on, so let's just start. This is pdfToolbox. I think that most of you already know that, and I start by just dragging a PDF file onto my pdfToolbox desktop tool here. So, and that PDF file has been opened now. I'm using pdfToolbox standalone here, but the very same features are available in the plugin and within Acrobat as well. So I've got a PDF file over here, and as you know, you can just apply a profile on this PDF file. So I'm selecting sheet-fed offset CMYK from my profiles panel here, and I'm going to analyze the file and fix if required, and I'm saving the result into my results folder. So now the PDF file is being processed, alternate color spaces are converted. Now the transparency is flattened in that file, and I've got the result file over here, and in the result there are a couple of warnings displayed here. So there is first as a line width, which is too thin, and I can double click on that and it shows me which objects have this problem, which is this red star over here. It has a thin red line, and there are a couple of other problems related to resolution, which is too high, which is 450 ppi, and I can again click on the entries over here, and in the snap view over here I can see what objects have this problem. So this is nothing new. You can do that in pdfToolbox 5 as well. However, if I'm analyzing these kinds of objects, I see that all of them are actually created during the transparency flattening of that file. So all of these objects have not been in the original file, but have only been created when that file has been transparency flattened. So, and as I have selected flatten transparency high resolution, it has created these objects in an apparently high resolution, which is in this case 600 ppi. But I have to say that is not really fair, but the original file didn't have these problems at all. So it may make sense to do the checking of the file before the transparency is actually flattened in that file. So, and that was not possible up until now, and it still not is in the release version, but it will be in the next release version, pdfToolbox 6, and I want to show to you how that works. So I'm going back to the original file, and I've got over here a process plan. So you can see that there is a different icon over here. So it's showing up in my list of profiles, but it has a different icon. I can also use a filter over here to only see what process plans are defined in my pdfToolbox 6 for now. And here is one that is called sheet-fed offset conversion preflight objects before transparency is flattened. I'm clicking on the edit button and I see how this process plan has been set up. So first, there is one profile, and that one uses the name sheet-fed offset CMYK, no transparency flattening. So I'm clicking on that entry and I can select whatever profile is available in my system here. So, and I can search for any profiles that are using sheet-fed in their name. And there is one, I have that, of course, I have that prepared that. There's one which is called sheet-fed offset CMYK, no transparency flattening. So this is the original space on the original sheet-fed offset profile, but the transparency flattening has been removed. On error, I have said, okay, create me a mask report and continue with next step. If there's a warning, do the same. Create a PDF mask report and continue with next step. On info, just continue. And I could say, okay, on info, I want to as well, maybe I want to create an overview report, so I can select whatever report I would like to see, and then continue with next step. But I don't want to do that, so I don't want to have I don't want to have an overview report here, so I'm removing that one. And the second step in this process plan is flatten transparency. So this is in the Google pdfToolbox 6. And let's now just use that process plan. Analyze and fix. And I'm saving the file into the results folder again, overwriting the previous result. And now the file is being corrected. And in the first step, this sheet-fed offset CMYK no transparency flattening does not have or does not find any problems, no problems found. And only afterwards, in the second steps, transparency is flattened within that PDF file. So the result is now the very same as before. So now in the result file, all transparent objects are being flattened, but I have a check, or the results of my preflight check are based on the PDF file as it was after all corrections, with the exception of transparency flattening. And that makes actually very much sense, because transparency flattening does so many things to a PDF file that you cannot trust the preflight findings in many cases, because so many objects are being created new during transparency flattening. And that is something that you can do right now using process plans, meaning you can adjust the order in which the parts of a profile are being applied. So usually in pdfToolbox, first all corrections are applied and then the checks are applied. And in this case, I have changed the order to first apply all corrections with the exception of transparency flattening, then do all the checking, and then do transparency flattening. We can do even more. So closing the result file. And now let's assume we want to create preview images from this PDF file. And we want to do that in a single process plan. So first, we need to go to pdfToolbox and to the document section. And here, as I think most of you know, there is the image export that allows me to create images from a PDF file, preview images if you want. And I can say, okay, I want to have preview images with a size of 300 by 300 pixel. And I could now just drag the PDF file into the canvas here and just do execute. But as said before, I would like to have that as part of my process plan. So what is new in PDF Toolbox 6 is I can now create a switchboard action. I'm doing that, and I'm giving it the name, so image export 300 by 300 pixel, and I'm saving that. Now I'm going back to my previous process plan, and I'm creating a duplicate of that one. And as you see over here, I can add additional steps to my process plan. So I could either add a sequence, a single check, a fix-up, or an action. And I would like to do that. So I'm adding that action, and I'm selecting image export 300 by 300 pixel, which I've just created. And I'm just adding that action to my process plan. I could, if I want, so it may make sense to just put it in between these two pre-files, or even do that at the beginning. So in that case, preview images would be created from the original file. But in this case, I'd like to do that at the very end of my corrections, so that I can maybe display a preview image to a customer who has just uploaded the PDF file or whatever. And I'm saving that new process plan to the group process plans, and maybe I should give it a new name. So PDF Toolbox has added copy 1 to it, so I'm replacing this with and create previews. So I'm saving that. And as you see, there is a new process plan over here. I have already selected the original PDF file, and I'm running this new process plan, saving the result into my result folder. And it does now the same things as before. So it applies some corrections, it flattens transparency, and finally it has executed the image export. And if I go to my results folder now, there is, in addition to the result file, a JPEG image right now as selected in my action. And if I'm double-clicking that, I see that there is indeed a preview image with a width of 300 pixels and a height which is slightly smaller. So, because of course the proportions remain as they are on the PDF file. So in that way I can build simple plans of work and action steps to be applied to a PDF file. So one other example. This is a brochure. This is the first page. Then I've got the second and third page, and so forth. So this is what we call reader spreads. So it's maybe a layouter, graphic designer has created this file so that one can see whatever left sides will be seen in the final product with whatever right sides. However, as you all know, this is not good for production. So for production purposes, for printing, we would need to cut these files, these pages in the middle, in order to really impose them. So, and you can do that with PDF Toolbox 5, no problem. You can go to the Arrange area. You can first split the pages in half and then apply the booklet imposition. However, these are two steps, and you can now do that using a process plan in a single step. So I've prepared a process plan which is called Convert Reader Spreads into a Booklet. And when I'm opening that one, there is one action split in half that has been created based on the switchboard action, and the other action is called booklet, no cut marks, and that is just another switchboard action. And if I apply this process plan to my file here, it first cuts all the pages in the middle, and then it creates me a brochure with the last page, the first page, and the second and last but one page, and so forth. So it has now prepared and imposed the PDF file for the printing process. Another example is, which is based on a new process plan. I have called this remove text. There is a new fix-up in pdfToolbox 6, which was not there in pdfToolbox 5. And this one can just remove any layers that are in a PDF file. And you can say, okay, you want to just remove the layer, or you want to remove the layer with all objects that are on this layer. And I have prepared this, and my first fix-up here would just put all text objects onto a text layer. So I can, whatever objects I can identify with pdfToolbox by using a check, I can put these objects onto a layer. So these are all the fix-ups that are available right now in pdfToolbox 6. And then I can simply remove those layers that I've just recreated. So let's do that one. Again, I'm saving the file into my results folder. I'm replacing the previous result, and it now creates a PDF file without any text in it. I've got one more example, and this is a PDF file with some problems, and maybe we've got a production process in which it is more important that we can print a file than quality. So we have tight time plans, we need to print everything. So, and even if there are really problems with on a page or so, we need to print that. And what we can do in pdfToolbox 6 using a process plan, you can first apply a profile, and I'm just using the regular sheet-fed offset profile over here. And in case there is an error, I say, okay, create me a mask report, continue with next step. If there is only a warning, an info, or just no hit, just exit the sequence. In this case, when there is an error, so continue with next step, I could also say, okay, continue with step 3 or so. So I can say, okay, just skip the next step, just go directly to step 3 in this flow. And if I would have, let's say, 5 steps, I could also directly jump to this step 5. But in this case, I say just continue with next step. And then I'm converting the pages into images. So I'm rasterizing the pages, and then I apply the same profile again, sheet-fed offset profile. I could say, okay, don't apply fix-ups in this case, but I'm leaving that as it is. And let's just do that. So analyze and fix me the file, and save me the result into the results folder. And it now first applies the profile. It already tells me, okay, there's a problem with the font. One font couldn't be embedded, so, and then there is a check that gives me an error, font not embedded, and then a mask report is created, and then pages are converted into an image, and finally the profile has been applied again, and then pdfToolbox has automatically opened the report that has just been created, and therefore I cannot see the results anymore, so I have to go back to the result file, and then I can click on this arrow over here in order to see the results again. And then I can review. So first, okay, sheet fed offset profile has been applied, but the font Alberto's extra bold is not available in my system. No font substitution has been set up, so there is an error. And for this reason, all images have, all pages have been converted into 400 ppi images, so that I at least can print them in any way. And then again, sheet fed offset has been applied, but in this case without any errors. So I can now just use the looper feature in pdfToolbox in order to zoom into the PDF, and I can see, okay, indeed, this page has been converted into an image. Nothing we are very proud of, but still it could help if I necessarily, so that maybe there's a time I need to have this printed out tomorrow, so at least I can do something about that. Of course, it would also be possible to use redistill in this case. So, you know, in pdfToolbox, you have also the ability to redistill pages using the distiller that has been built into pdfToolbox. So instead of just rasterizing these pages, I could also do, or just try to do a redistill, check the results again, everything's okay, no problem, and only if that also fails, create an image of these pages. Okay, and this is a report, and once again I can go to the second page. So still I've got one result file with the image, but still I have the original file, if you want, as part of my report here. And it has inserted masks into this report indicating which parts of the page have this problem, meaning font not embedded. And if I zoom into this one over here, you can see that the original file was indeed not an image, but was text, in this case vectors. So I think that was pretty much what I wanted to show about process plans. Let me add one thing. You can do all of this also in pdfToolbox Server, and that I will show you in a minute. So you can use these profiles in pdfToolbox Server or within Switch or so by simply selecting them, these profiles, and exporting them as a regular profile into your file system. I don't want to do that right now. I want to show you one other new feature in pdfToolbox. I have opened another PDF file, and this one is kind of a bluish postcard or so, and I go into View, Visualize Individual Separations in order to see what is in the file, and it shows me, okay, within the cyan channel I can see that there is this image, and that makes it bluish. The magenta is empty, the yellow is empty, and there is some information in the black channel. So this is apparently something like a duotone image or so, but for any reason the originator of this PDF file was not able to insert this blue color, or this color, the spot color that is actually intended to be printed here. It was not able to create that spot color, so he has just used the cyan channel in that case. And what I can do right now, I can go to pdfToolbox 6 group here in order to view that profile, and I've prepared a profile which is called Convert Cyan into a real duplex. So let's just apply that and use the result folder, and it has now applied the profile, and this is unfortunately one remaining thing we need to solve in pdfToolbox 6. It's a refresh of this display over here, so I'm closing the result. I'm going to my result folder, and this is a postcard postcard 8. I've just saved there, and I'm dragging that one onto pdfToolbox. And now you can see it has actually converted the cyan into some kind of brown spot color. And we can now view the separations again, and now the cyan is empty, and it has created a new channel which is called spot brown, and that has all the information that previously was in the cyan channel. And we can go briefly into this fix-up over here, and I've just selected that profile. I'm going into the fix-up section. Here is the fix-up that is part of this profile, and I'm opening that for editing. And this one does actually use a fix-up that was and is already present in pdfToolbox 5. However, in pdfToolbox 5, it was only possible to remap spot colors over here, and today, and with pdfToolbox 6, you can also remap process channels. So remap the cyan channel to spot brown, and I've defined the alternate of this spot color, spot brown, into kind of a brownish tone. And I could do, by simply clicking on this plus icon over here, I could do, if I want, the same for magenta and whatever other channels I may use here. And as we are here, I've just removed that. As we are here in this section, I want to show you one additional usability thing that we've just added to pdfToolbox. You could always use wildcards over here. So if you would want to say, okay, I want to remap all spot colors, you could use wildcards or regular expressions actually within this field here. And if you would type in this expression, it would just remap all spot colors that are present in the PDF file with whatever name they have into spot brown, in this example. And as this is not always easy to see and find out what to type in over here, we've inserted some help here, so you can simply click on these green icons or buttons over here whenever you see them in pdfToolbox, and then some information, including some sample code, is displayed over here. So I don't want to go too much in detail here, but just that you know there is some help, which is also new. You never know, there is some help in pdfToolbox 6. Okay, so, but cancel this one. So this is actually the stuff that I wanted to show to you, which is new in pdfToolbox Desktop, and it is also, if you want, new in pdfToolbox Server, as you can use all these features in pdfToolbox Server as well. But now I want to show to you what is special about pdfToolbox 6 and especially about pdfToolbox 6 Server. One thing that is new in, if you want, pdfToolbox 6, but only makes sense in conjunction with pdfToolbox Server, there is a new server entry over here in the Tools menu. And if I'm opening that one, it shows me a new window. And this one says, okay, there is no local server or dispatcher or satellite on this computer, and I can use the options menu in the upper right corner. I'm going to explain to you what this means, and especially what a dispatcher and a satellite is. So let's first go to this options menu over here, and now I can start either a server, a dispatcher, or a satellite on my computer, or I can connect with a remote server. So let's first just start a server on this computer, and then I could define an access code. I'm going to explain that one as well, but for now I don't want to define an access code right now. I'm just clicking on OK, and it has now created a local server. I can unlock this server. So if I would have defined an access code before, I would have to type in here, so but there is no access code, so click just on OK. And now I've got a local server here, and I can create a new job for this server. And I give this job the name pdfToolbox 6 webinar. I could enter some further description here, and I can either select the in folder or I use Turbo, which makes much more sense because it's much faster. And then I go to my webinar folder here and create a new folder, pdfToolbox 6 server. And I'm selecting that folder by clicking on choose. And it has now created subfolders in this folder for in success, info, warning, error on for the original files. And then I can say, okay, process subfolders, overwrite existing files, and log the CLI output. And one important thing, I need to adjust to select a profile for this folder structure, and I want to, so I'm using the search feature here, and I want to use the profile that we've previously created. Actually, there's a process plan that would do the sheet-fed offset conversion, then preflight objects before transparency is flattened, and then create preview images. I say OK, and it has now created a new job entry over here. And now I want to, this is my folder, and I need to start the job over here in order to really create my files. And now we can use the same file as before. So I'm putting this one into the in folder. And I can now see that there is some green color over here, and that shows me that there is a single PDF file in that folder that has just been processed. And I can even open a progress window, and I would want to do that again. So let's go back to my webinar folder and put that file. So actually there is no in file anymore. It has just not updated the file list in my Finder over here. And again, there is this green icon over here that shows me the progress. And now the entries show up over here and tells me, okay, there have been 481 fix-ups have been applied to the PDF file, and the final checks have been done without any problems. And has now also created the preview images next to the converted files, the transparency flattened files, and I can double click them as well. And of course, these are the same preview images as before. So what is new? I can now manage my profiles in pdfToolbox 6 desktop, and I can directly submit them to a server job, and I don't have to export these profiles anymore. So I can try out, I can work with my profiles in pdfToolbox 6 desktop, and I can manage hot folder configurations from within pdfToolbox desktop, and then see the progress, how these files are being processed from pdfToolbox desktop. But even more, I could also connect with a remote server. So if there is another server somewhere in my network, so I could connect with this remote server via IP communication. So I just would need to know the IP address of this remote server. I can even use Bonjour, so that would find all pdfToolbox servers that are running in my network together with their port number. And as long as I've got that information, or as long as they show up in Bonjour, I can connect to these remote servers. I can unlock, so this is local on my server, but I could do the very same thing with a remote computer and manage profiles and hot folder configurations on that remote computer.
This box obeys the voice. This was also a question some attendees also asked. Yes, you can manage from every standalone pdfToolbox the settings of a server, of a satellite, or a dispatcher via the intranet.
Yeah, we are coming to dispatcher and satellites in a minute, but for now we've got the servers in our network, and I can connect to whatever server there is in my network, and now it makes sense, I guess, to lock a server. So I need to lock the server and to unlock it, and to apply an access code to the server, so that not every pdfToolbox desktop in my network can connect to my server list. So maybe only the administrator is allowed to do so, and to start jobs or stop jobs or modify profiles or whatever on my pdfToolbox servers in the network. So that therefore we've introduced these access code. One thing I need to mention here is these access codes, of course, need to be transmitted over the network via IP, as said before. Also, communication is IP-based. We're using SOAP, by the way, for that. And the messages are actually XML messages that are exchanged between the computers, and access codes are transmitted in clear text, so they are not encrypted. And therefore, we recommend to not use regular passwords that you would use otherwise or in other situations. Just use simple access codes to make sure that only that workstation that are allowed to connect and manage your servers. So for now, I want to stop this. So I say stop my local server. Yes, I want to do that. And it's now terminating the server. And in order to explain that further, I am opening a brief, some slides I want to show to you for Toolbox 6. So, and that is what we've already seen. So you can do central management of profiles and hot folders. You can manage the profiles from your central pdfToolbox desktop workstation. You can also manage the job configurations on the servers in your network. You have a central overview about the processing on whatever, how many servers you have in your network. You can secure servers by applying access codes, and you can do that in mixed environments. So you can have your pdfToolbox desktop running on a Mac, and let's say on Linux, you have the actual server running, and you can manage profiles and hot folder configuration for this Linux computer. And this is a diagram that shows that I've got the pdfToolbox desktop in the upper left corner, and this one is connected over my network to, in this case, 3 servers, and there are some hot folders on these servers, and files that show up in the in folders are being processed by these servers, and the results, meaning how many corrections have been applied and which problems may have occurred for a particular file, so that the actual problem file will show up in the error folder. All this information is displayed in this progress window. But this is not all. you can also do this one. So, and in this case, the diagram has just changed to have these folders, the in folder and so forth, on this central computer, which is now called pdfToolbox Dispatcher, and it's still connected over the network to what is now called satellites. So in this case, we're doing kind of load balancing, meaning we have a central in folder, whatever files show up in this in folder are transmitted together with the profile to the satellites, are being processed, and the file is being sent back together with some result information to the dispatcher, which then puts the file into the error, success, info, warning folder, or whatever. And in this case, so, and now I think it makes sense, I could start this pdfToolbox over here from my desktop out. I can say start as a dispatcher, and then again I could secure this dispatcher by means of an access code, and then it has started the dispatcher. It uses the same folders as before because they are now local, but now no files would be processed because, as you can see over here, there are 0 satellites connected with this dispatcher, and the dispatcher would never process any PDF files. It would just submit files to the satellites in the network. So this is real load balancing. Of course, I could have a satellite in addition to the dispatcher on this machine, but I would need a dispatcher license then and a satellite license. And let's stop. So I need first to unlock the dispatcher. I don't have an access code. I stop the server, which actually is a dispatcher right now. And so if I would start this as a dispatcher, it would again, not a dispatcher, I want to run as a satellite right now. So start as a satellite, and in this case I need to enter the IP address and the port number of the dispatcher. And then I could connect to the dispatcher, and in my dispatcher window I would see, okay, there is a single satellite connected to this dispatcher, and the dispatcher would then start to submit files to me as a satellite. So as a summary, again, we have centralized management of the pdfToolbox profile with pdfToolbox desktop. And again, we would use centrally manage the job configurations, meaning the hot folders for our server processes. But now we've got central hot folders on the central dispatcher. We have a central overview again, and we can still protect the satellite with access codes, and we can do that in mixed environments, meaning, again, we have a dispatcher, let's say on Windows, and we have the satellites on Linux, Macintosh, and Sun Solaris, or whatsoever. One other scenario is Switch. So you can do the very same thing in Switch, or whatever workflow you might have. So over here I've got a profile configurator for pdfToolbox. There is a 5 here, it should be a 6. So of course you would need pdfToolbox 6 configurator, but that configurator can work together with pdfToolbox, which is being set up as a dispatcher, and then all the load, meaning the actual processing of the PDF files, is done over the network on whatever satellites are being connected to the dispatcher. So in this simple example, the switch would just do the folder, watching the folders, would just move files within the folders, and all the PDF processing is done on different computers in the network. So this is a summary. So in Switch runs the configurator, and that submits the files to the dispatcher, which is on the same computer. And the dispatcher would distribute all the files and all the work to the satellites of the network. Again, we could use protection if we want. And again, for instance, we could have the switch on, let's say, a Mac, and the actual PDF processing is being done on a Linux computer or some Solaris or IX or whatever. I hope this is clear right now. So whatever network configurations you might have with the pdfToolbox 6. This is kind of an overview about what processing methods there are.
Sorry, I was just answering.
Any questions so far?
Let me have a look. One version of this. Yes, the setup will also work like with when you have one server in the network running with hot folders and something like that. Or you can configure them from several standalone versions in the network, of course. You should not even try to configure one job simultaneously from different jobs. That's not the sense of this feature. But of course, you can modify server jobs or stop them or start them from every standalone network. Yeah.
Yeah, you can manage servers from here. And you can start jobs on remote servers or stop jobs on remote servers, and you could do that with every pdfToolbox desktop 6 that you've got installed in your network. If you want that, that's just fine. You can do that. If you don't want to do that, so if you want to protect your servers from being modified with pdfToolbox desktop, then you should give an access code to the server so that only that ones can manage, meaning stop, start, modify the profile, whatever, the server that knows this access code.
There's also a switch-related question about configurators directly integrates the profiles made from the standalone. This is not possible at the moment. You have to export and import them into Switch because several separate libraries of profiles are used for this at the moment. Also, the distributed processing needs some additional strings within the additional CLI parameters of a Switch the pdfToolbox configurator profile action. This will be also included in the next available configurator of Switch, which is available at the pack manager within 1 or 2 weeks.
Yeah, as you know, the updating the configurators, we cannot do that ourselves. So we submit the configurators to Infocus, and they are checking it, and they will provide you with the updated version of our configurators then, meaning pdfToolbox 6 configurators. If you would want then to use profiles from pdfToolbox 6, for instance, a new process plan that you've created, you still need to export, as before, you would need to export these process plan into your file system in order to use that with Switch. So there is no direct link to pdfToolbox from Switch, but once you have exported that, you can use it within Switch. Yes. So this is the overview, and the first one is what was possible with pdfToolbox 5 as well. So I'm saying this is a classical method. I'm just doing server processing with hot folders on one computer, and on this computer I need pdfToolbox desktop in order to create profiles, and I can just run and start a local server as I've done before on my computer here over this with this new window here. So there is no big difference. The new pdfToolbox server installer will install the pdfToolbox server as well as a pdfToolbox desktop, so that you have everything that you need once you have run the installer, everything that you need in order to set up something like this scenario that I've just set up here. So what is new is server processing with distributed hot folders. So what is new, I can, from pdfToolbox here, I can connect to a remote server, and I can separate pdfToolbox desktop creation of profiles and management of profiles and management of hot folders, and do the actual hot folder processing on a remote computer. And for doing that, I would at least have to have one pdfToolbox server license, but I could have 2 of them, and then I could use 2 servers for doing the actual processing. I can also, what is also new, I can do load balancing with a dispatcher and as many satellites that I need, and then I would need to have a new license, which is called a pdfToolbox dispatcher license. And in addition to the dispatcher license, I would need at least one pdfToolbox server license, which is for the satellite. So in this case, I would need at least one dispatcher and at least one pdfToolbox server license. Then if I would want to use Switch, but I don't want to do network processing, no load balancing, so I just want to use pdfToolbox 6 as before with pdfToolbox 5. Processing is done on the same computer as Switch. Then I just need one pdfToolbox server license as before. But if I would want to use Switch in conjunction with network processing and load balancing, then I would need on my Switch computer a pdfToolbox dispatcher license and as many pdfToolbox server licenses for all my satellites in the network. I hope that this is clear. And now pricing. We've got the new pdfToolbox dispatcher license, which is roughly €2,000, meaning 50% of a regular license. Then we've got the regular license, which is, as before, €4,000. But now there is a limitation, so this is good for 8 parallel processes, so 8 files can be processed in parallel. This requires to have 8 CPUs on my computer, so this is already a very well equipped computer, and that is okay. But if I would want an even more advanced computer with even more CPUs, let's say with 16 or whatever, then there is a new license. So if I want to process more than 8 files in parallel, I would need the unlimited license, which is €6,000. However, so this is something that we've introducing new right now for pdfToolbox 6, because there are so many because there are so supercomputers today. So if you want to use such supercomputers, you would need an additional license. However, if you have used pdfToolbox 5 in the past, you are and you have a support and maintenance agreement in place, you are automatically updated to this unlimited version. So you automatically then can use as many CPUs as you have used with pdfToolbox 5 without additional payment. And then there are pdfToolbox Desktop 6, same price as for pdfToolbox Desktop 5, meaning €500. And then there is an upgrade from pdfToolbox 5 to 6, which is €200, and an upgrade from pdfToolbox 4 to 6, which is €300. So I hope that all makes sense that I have described today. We are just in time, so just a couple of minutes to 5, and that is a good time to say thank you for attending this webinar. I'm asking Mark whether there are any questions.
No, at the moment there are no unanswered questions. I've got a question right now. I'll just read it. Back to the beginning of the demo, is it possible to set up a process plan for one-step changing a press-ready GWG sheet CMYK PDF images with in coverage more than 300% to a newspaper ads PDF images in coverage less than 240%?
I think this is possible by using device link profiles.
Yeah. Should be normally possible with combining these profiles within a process plan, or just making the profile separately one after another.
There was one question whether it's possible to apply visual comparison between the original file and the result file. That is actually something that you could do with, let's go to prepress. I'm just showing that. So assuming we have a PDF file and we want to find out whether the result file is different from the original file, I can create, so I'm just duplicating my profile here, and it has now created me a duplicate of this magazine ads profile, and then I can add a check, and that was, there is visual differences, so there is a predefined check here, visual differences when comparing original and result. And if I would add that one to my profile here, I can say, okay, what resolution should be used for rendering the original file and the result file. Then I can find out whether there are any differences. I hope that makes sense and that answers this question. So I can maybe just use that, compare original and result. So I have created a new profile here. I can use my transparency file from the processed folder, which is the original file. So I'm just trying it out. So I'm saving it to my results folder. And it now applies all corrections as set up in the profile. So it flattens transparency, then it has found some problems, and this indicates that indeed the file has been changed. So there are visual differences when comparing the original and the result file. And that will always give me an error when the result file is not identical to the original file. In this case, there hasn't changed much, so the visual appearance is actually the same. However, there are smaller differences, and we're using 200 ppi here for the comparison, so it may make sense to lower the resolution in order to suppress such things where the differences are based on transparency flattening. Okay, Mark's shaking heads. So
no questions at the moment, which have to be answered in the whole audience.
So thanks from Germany to the world. yeah, I'm looking forward to hear your comments on your first impression of PDF Toolbox and so forth. Thank you.
Yeah,